Are great entrepreneurs naturally gifted, or can you learn to be one? And let's go back with last round's champ, Chris Jefferson.
Yeah, look, I think it could be learned to be a great entrepreneur. To be a great entrepreneur, to be a good businessman, a great businessman, woman, it takes skill. It takes time to develop that. I think a lot of people get into business, entrepreneurship, and they have a great concept. Got a great product, a great idea. And they think just because of that, all of a sudden it's just going to take off. You're going to make a bunch of money and everything's just going to be beautiful. That's just not how entrepreneurship truly works. It's a lot of valleys in this. There's a lot of bad days. There's a lot of days you wake up and it's not how you wanted it to be. That can be learned over time. You have to constantly be developing your skill, seeing the things that you're weak at, what you can get better at. And eventually over time, you become a legendary entrepreneur and you can make massive, massive money as a result. So I think it's something that could easily be learned if you're willing to be dedicated to the craft of learning how to be a good entrepreneur.
All right. Leon G. Barnes, your thoughts?
Yeah, like anything, you often hear our leaders born, our entrepreneurs born. There are traits that everyone has that are gifts, and you can use those gifts as you see fit. But I think in this particular case, this is something that can definitely be learned. There are some natural traits here. I talk to entrepreneurs on a daily basis. Those entrepreneurs often started out flipping couches, I heard during the pandemic, people were flipping weights and workout equipment because it wasn't available. There's always that trait of someone starting when they were 5 or 6 years old and selling things from the beginning of their life. But anything can be taught. I'm under that belief. And so from an entrepreneur standpoint, definitely believe it can be taught.
All right, Steve, your thoughts?
I think that there are a lot of people that are successful that they have to have some ingrained traits that they're born with. I think that they do have to have some driver personality. I think that they have to, have a strong ego, self identity. But I think with that being said, you need to have a good layer. But after that good layer, 95%, 98% of your success is going to be mental and self-development, surrounding yourself with the right people. So I think if you got the wrong raw materials, you're going to have some problems. If you got the right raw materials, then you can become something great through building upon yourself. So there's a lot more nurture than nature, but without the nature, it doesn't matter how much you nurture, I don't believe.
Okay. And RJ, take us home.
So I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to be the one person that disagrees with everybody. I'm going to say that to be a great entrepreneur, that you have to be born with a certain skill set. I don't think that, the question is to be great. And I don't know that you could take someone that is not born with the right mindset, the ability to handle the ups and downs and the pressures of being an entrepreneur. I don't know if that's something that you can just go out and someone can teach that to you. I think you have to be born with that inside of you, and it's kind of a part of your makeup. Can you be taught how to be an entrepreneur? Sure, but I don't know about greatness. That's like saying you could just teach someone how to throw a football as great as Tom Brady. That was kind of naturally gifted to him, and I think that's we're underestimating what we mean by a great entrepreneur. I think there's very few and far between the amount of entrepreneurs there are that are great.
Okay.
Well, I think to your point, right? That's kind of what I was saying earlier. Like, you have to have some ingrained traits. You have to have some of it, but that's just a fraction of it. But like, someone that's really, really, really detail oriented, like an accountant or a scientist, I don't know if they can ever learn to become an entrepreneur, but someone that has a drive, that's not enough. There's so much more that has to be added on top of that.
So You're both right. The personality profile
Thank
for
you.
an entrepreneur is typically different than the person that's okay with working for someone else and going in 8 to 5. It is definitely a different profile. That said, Larry Yatch has talked about this on your show and at our mastermind several times. The education system in the United States was set up to create a bunch of factory workers. All of us public school kids went through an education system to set up factory workers. So for me, having to go to college and find a good job like I was taught by my grandparents, right? I didn't know that I had those skills within me until someone showed me the way as to be an entrepreneur. So Yes. Do I have some natural traits that lean towards that? Absolutely. But I do think there are people out there right now that are listening to this and say, I've never really thought of myself as an entrepreneur. I don't know if I could be. Absolutely, you can be, and it can be taught. Not maybe you're not great, but you can be.
Great. That's
Yeah,
what
I think-
Yes, absolutely.
But I think great is all just self-definition at the end of the day. If you believe and feel that you're great, I think you are great. I don't think any one man or woman can decide who is or isn't great. But look, at the end of the day, it's all about ego and pride being left at the door in entrepreneurship and accepting the things that you aren't really great at and the things that you can get better at. And then the things that you are naturally gifted and good at, how can you get even better at those particular things? Build a team around the things that you're not very great at. Develop that skill set so you can manage that team. And the things that you're really good at, drive those things inside of your business. But I think you can be a great entrepreneur. You don't have to develop Facebook or, something like that to be considered great. I think anybody can be great in their own right. I just think you can develop these skills over time. I've been doing it for 12 years, right? So I didn't start out knowing how to talk to a seller on the phone or doing this and doing that. You develop that skill.
But you
over
probably
time.
hustled a little bit in high school.
See
Well,
how he just called himself great without calling himself great? See how you did that? I
So
see what
I
you're
think-
doing there,
Skill,
CJ.
Leon,
Going
that's
back
a
to-
skill. That's a
Going back to
I
having
was
the right
hustling,
thing, right?
I was
Like
hustling for sure a couple of different things in high school, mostly candy and some, DVDs and stuff like that. But, so you have a natural knack. Yes, I agree. But to hone in on that skill set, how you truly sell, how do you understand that sales is really psychology? That's the skill sets you got to develop over time, in my opinion.
So charisma and leadership and all of these different things that it takes, and honestly, just the ability to handle the pressures of being an entrepreneur, you think all of that can be taught?
RJ, I just got to say, man, thank you. I'm flattered that you feel, those things about
Say that
me.
again,
And
RJ?
say it. RJ, repeat what you said. Thank you so much for that, man. I appreciate it.
What I said was CJ just had the softest moment on Pardon the Disruption.
Well, I was thinking he was probably one of those people suing Open Door.
Anyone, you just define what greatness is, and you're great.
I think that's fair, man. I think that's fair.
I think that the only exception, if you don't have, we're talking about the natural ingrained traits. If you don't have that, I think the only other way is you have to have like some severe trauma, right, to really kind of like shift you, to motivate you to be an entrepreneur. Because if you don't have some of those ingrained traits, the ones where you got in trouble in school or you're selling things maybe you shouldn't have been selling, right? If you didn't have those things, then you're gonna have to have an experience that's gonna force you to become an entrepreneur. Otherwise, I think you're gonna become a 9-to-5 worker.
To RJ's question, right? Does charisma naturally help? For sure. I agree with that 110%. But can that be earned or learned? Yeah, like if you're not good talking to people or you don't feel you're charming or have charisma, go to Toastmasters, go take some different classes, take up some stuff on public speaking, like develop how those things work and you can get good at it.
You don't have to teach RJ that. He already has no personality. He's figured out how to make charisma work.
That's fair.
CJ is a perfect example of how this cannot happen. Okay, you cannot be taught to be charismatic. You can't be taught to be a great entrepreneur. See, look at CJ.
All right, we have some great comments in the chat. One from Adam. He says, to quote John Maxwell, great leaders aren't born, they're made. Bam Bam 704 says, you have to be born with not being content and stubborn and work ethic, but not an entrepreneur. I think I followed that one. And then there was one more. Cassie said, you have to be able to thrive in certain sets of circumstances too. So great comments from the chat. We appreciate all those. Voting has closed and looks like Steve Trang gets to raise the trophy again because he's on the board with 2 points. So it's coming down to the wire here between CJ and Steve Trang. But Leon and
I just
RJ
gotta give a
not
shout
out.
out to the U. That's all I'm doing moving forward.